The growth of cities during the High Middle Ages transformed European society in profound ways, making possible the revival of formal education and the creation of institutions that still shape the modern world. After centuries of instability and decline following the fall of the Roman Empire, Europe experienced a broad recovery after the year 1000. This recovery, driven by expanding towns, a stronger economy, rising literacy, and increasing political stability, sparked one of the most important developments of the period: an educational rebirth. Before 1000, opportunities for formal education in Western Europe were limited and uneven. Learning was almost entirely controlled by the church and took place in small schools attached to monasteries or to the households of bishops and archbishops. These church schools focused primarily on teaching Latin and the basic skills necessary for clerical work, such as reading, writing, and copying religious texts. They were small, scattered, and offered little beyond elementary instruction. As towns grew after 1000 and Europe's economy revived, the demand for educated individuals expanded far beyond the clergy. Both church officials and secular rulers recognized a growing need for trained men capable of handling administration, law, commerce, and theology. In response, church schools expanded in size and scope, laying the groundwork for an entirely new institution, the university. A crucial turning point came in 1158, when Emperor Frederick Barbarossa granted a charter to the cathedral school at Bologna in northern Italy. With this charter, the school became a self-governing institution devoted primarily to the study of Roman law. Bologna is therefore considered the first true university. Around the same time, Paris emerged as another major center of higher learning. Its cathedral school merged with several monastic schools, and in 1200 the King of France formally reorganized them into the University of Paris, which became especially famous for its work in theology and philosophy. As universities flourished, tensions often arose between students and the towns in which they lived. Disputes over housing, food prices, and legal authority were common. To protect their rights and interests, students and teachers began organizing themselves in ways that mirrored the structure most familiar to medieval urban life: the guild. Universities adopted this guild-like organization, dividing themselves into associations known as collegia, or colleges. These colleges served both academic and practical purposes, representing scholars in conflicts, establishing standards of study, and providing places to live, teach, and learn. Academic life at medieval universities followed a structured system of study and degrees. Every student began in the College of Arts, where they spent about 4 years studying the liberal arts, the core intellectual disciplines inherited from classical antiquity. These included grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. After passing examinations, students earned the Bachelor of Arts degree and could advance to specialized fields of study. Advanced degrees included the Master of Arts, Doctor of Medicine, Doctor of Laws, and the Doctor of Theology, which was considered the most prestigious of all. The word doctor simply meant learned man. To earn these degrees, students were required to write a thesis or dissertation and defend it publicly before their peers and teachers. This academic system closely resembled the guild training model of apprentice, journeyman, and master, applied not to crafts, but to intellectual labor. Because universities originated from church schools, theology dominated university teaching. A new intellectual method emerged to support this study: Scholasticism, or the philosophy of the schools. Scholastic thinkers sought to apply logical reasoning to religious questions, reconcile Christian doctrine with classical philosophy, and clarify and defend church teachings. Earlier Christian thinkers had relied primarily on St. Augustine and the philosophy of Plato. Aristotle's works were only partially known in Western Europe and often misunderstood. However, during the 12th century, many of Aristotle's writings were translated from Greek and Arabic into Latin. As a result, scholars increasingly used Aristotelian logic to examine theological problems. This raised one of the central questions of the High Middle Ages: how much of Christian doctrine depended solely on faith, and how much could be understood or supported through reason? The attempt to balance faith and reason became one of the defining intellectual debates of medieval Europe. The expansion of towns and universities also had far-reaching political consequences. Growing cities were centers of economic activity and depended on stability to thrive. While some cities fiercely defended their independence, such as the Lombard communes that resisted German emperors, many supported stronger monarchies. Kings offered protection, enforced laws, suppressed local feudal warfare, and ensured safer conditions for trade and commerce. In return, towns strengthened royal authority in two crucial ways. First, universities produced a new educated class trained in law, administration, record-keeping, and financial management. Kings could now hire salaried officials from the towns rather than relying on feudal nobles, who demanded land in exchange for service and often became rivals to royal authority. Second, towns provided monarchs with a reliable source of money. Unlike feudal dues paid in labor or crops, town taxes were paid in cash, gold, and silver, which allowed kings to fund governments, support professional armies, strengthen royal justice, and challenge the power of the nobility. By the High Middle Ages, cities and monarchies had formed a mutually beneficial alliance. Together, they reshaped European society, strengthening centralized government while encouraging intellectual and economic growth. The High Middle Ages marked a dramatic revival of European life. Towns expanded, universities re-emerged, scholastic philosophy flourished, and monarchs gained new tools to centralize authority. These interconnected developments laid the foundation for the political, cultural, and intellectual transformations that would define the late Middle Ages and ultimately pave the way for the Renaissance.